Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining my channel, tuning in, Profound AV. I would appreciate if you would like and subscribe this video to get notification when new content drops. So today I wanted to talk about, or more, I wanted to ask the question, what do you think is better, an AV receiver or an AV processor? Um, Yeah, I've been thinking about that question, and I think the answer, to be fair, is it depends on your situation, what your use case is going to be. I know when I first started out um, in home theater, I started out with a home theater in a box. So you got everything included: your speakers, the receiver, um, and all the cabling to connect all the speakers in a box, as it's called, a home theater in a box. And when I was starting out, that made things easier. It was kind of like the entry level, learning how to connect a separates. Well, not necessarily separates, but it was kind of the entry point. And then so I went from that and wanted to get better sound. So that's when I upgraded to an AV receiver, and I got a Denon 3801 at the time. I think it retailed for, I think, $1,200. And I think I upgraded my speakers at the same time, and I gotten some Mirage tower speakers, and I think they had the surrounds, the OMR2s. And going from the home theater in a box to um, the AV receiver with the speakers and cabling, I definitely heard an improvement in my sound. Better dynamics, better separation, just overall better quality. And then, as the years go by, well, first, I think even before then, I then upgraded the amplification, because I think when I bought the receiver, I decided to get it was the AVR 3801 Denon, but I got the one that had the pre-outs, and I'm not sure if I was aware what the pre-outs were used for, but just learning about AV and electronics and home theater, I realized the pre-outs became important, because the pre-outs on the AV receiver allowed me to add external amplification. All right. And again, that took another step, a leap towards better sound, better dynamics, lower distortion. And then held that for like years. I think I upgraded my speakers twice with that receiver. And then I upgraded my amplification. I got the Martin Logans, the three that you see in the front, the LCRs. And then I think it was back in 2016, I started to think about getting separates. So I got, um, I went to, I think it was Magnolia at the time, and I heard Macintosh stuff on some B&W speakers. And just the sound from that kind of motivated me to really think about getting separates, because I think after I listened to the B&Ws on the Macintosh stuff, they had a home theater setup, and I went in there and they were playing. It was Mad Max Fury Road, and I was like, "My, this thing, it sounds great," because it's the first time I'd ever heard just a dedicated home theater. And when I came back home, I was curious to hear how my system stacked up. And I was like, man, yeah, it was a little disappointing, to say the least, because I I just really I got the bug, and I was like, I'm gonna I need to upgrade from the sound I heard. I had to upgrade, and I had already had the amplifiers, so I knew I was kind of on the separates journey, anyways. So basically, I just ended up getting the actually I ended up getting the Macintosh MX122, and I got the 7 channel MC8207, and you can see it at the bottom. So this is the Macintosh stuff I got. All right. Yeah. And just getting that stuff, I say that it blew me away when um the first time I hooked it. I remember when I hooked it up, and I didn't run calibration. I just kind of just connected the speakers and just kind of played a demo. Was I think I was just watching regular TV, just regular cable. And I remember my wife was sitting next to me, and my son, I think he was somewhere in the living room. We were all in the living room after I set everything up. And we were like, oh damn, this thing this thing sounded phenomenal at the time. It just the way the sound was, the separation, the spaciousness, bigger, um, just grander sound, and my jaw dropped. I was so impressed that I actually called Magnolia, and I was like, "Damn, I can't believe what I was missing all these years," because I had just a regular the Denon AVR 3801. It didn't have room correction. It was good, but all I could really do with that was just level match my speakers with the SPL meter, which was good. I mean, it was great. I mean, the Denon's is a great was a is a great was a great receiver. They still make great products, but just realizing how technology had advanced and was just impressive. And it was just awesome. So, and then once I calibrated everything, yes, it just locked it into place. And I've had my setup for some time. As you can see, I've upgraded my subwoofers. I've added stuff here. So, and I went with all Martin Logan's, and I love my setup. I can't complain. I don't care what anybody say. I love the electrostatics. They're awesome. But back to the subject, whether receivers or processor is best. So, from my experience, a receiver is your all-in-one. It's you have your amplifier and your all your connections, your switching is built into one unit. And for a processor, you're basically removing the amplification from the equation. So all you're left with is your inputs, your connections for your all of your devices, and all of the DSP that's built into it. All right, so all the calibration suite. Like for mine, it's the Odyssey XT32. The top, I think it's the flagship um, Odyssey that comes with it. But with the processor, you have to have external amplifiers. All right, so that's kind of the only drawback. I don't know if it's a drawback. I think it's a preference. um and with the receiver, so now with the built-in amplification on the receiver, you're it's usually limited to, I've seen receivers that put out maybe 120 watts with all channels driven. You may get ones that put out 150 watts, but it's limited to either the front three, the LCRs. But you're not gonna get a receiver that puts out 200 watts into all channels. It's not gonna. I don't think that exists. I think there are some limitations because remember you have to kind of fit everything in one box. You have to fit in the amplification, all of the chips and boards, and the speaker terminals. Um, you know, whereas the processor, you only need to focus on just the line out, the pre-out lines that you connect the amplifiers. Um, and so with the processor, you basically are limited by your budget because you can pretty much get whatever amplifier power you need based on what your speaker's handling is. So I know my amplifier, the Macintosh, is rated at 200 watts into 4 and 8 ohms. I also have a 3-channel B&K amplifier that I actually bought so here's the Denon receiver that I was talking about actually. Yep, this is it right here. So the AVR 3801, and then when I went to separates, I got this B&K, and it puts out 220 watts times 3 and into 8 ohms, and into 4 ohms I believe it does somewhere north of 300 watts per channel. It could be a little bit more, but what I'm using the Denon for right now is basically amplification. I'm not using it for signal processing. So it's basically just amplifying like these wide speakers. So these Martin Logan speakers right here. And the B&K amplifies, it amplifies these surrounds right here. All right. So, so back to the question, receiver or processor? I would say with the processor, the other benefit is the gain stage. So um, processors are typically housed with XLR output for the output channels. So and XLR output are usually around 6 dB louder versus the RCA terminals that you normally find on receivers. So you get that benefit of maybe cleaner output. And the other thing too is that you're not dealing with heat dissipation issues because with the receiver having the amplifiers built in, they're going to give off heat, and heat is the enemy of your sound quality and longevity of your component. Whereas the processor um, really doesn't have the problem with heat so much from the amplifiers, and because of separating the amplifiers, you can get more powerful ones that whether they put out heat or not, you're not concerned with that issue. I mean, Class D amplifiers mitigate that problem. So with the Class Ds, you're not dealing with a lot of heat. You can get Class Ds with gobs of output, and some of these newer receivers probably are built with Class D's amplification, so they might run cooler. As far as with the receiver, I mean, if you don't have the space for a lot of external amplifiers and you're limited in space and budget, then that's the other thing. Budget is receivers are typically runs cheaper if you're doing a one-to-one comparison to a processor. You typically can get a cheaper receiver versus a processor. You're going to end up paying, more money to get something that doesn't have amplification. Then you're going to have to add amplifiers to it. So you're going to spend quite a bit, money to put a system together. So if your budget is an issue, getting a receiver, getting one with pre-outs might be the best way to go. And then you can add additional amplification as your need dictates. You can even maybe start off with adding amplifiers to your front stage, because that's where a lot of the action takes place. So, yeah, you want to kind of fortify that with better amplification, and then you can add, more for the other channels. I mean, the surrounds, they don't really require too much amplification. They, because not a lot of, I mean, you're getting your surrounds, but in terms of dynamics, your surrounds are not going to work as hard as your front stage. And then your subwoofers, they have built-in amplifiers, so that's not any issues. All right, but in my feeling is, I'd rather get a processor, because you typically get better sound from a processor because of the XLR output, and because it's 6 dB louder and probably cleaner, better build quality, um, versus a receiver where, yeah, I mean, you can get great performance. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but if you're looking for, that no compromise setup where you want to get every ounce of performance, I would go with a processor over a receiver. But again, you can always get one with pre-outs and add the amplifiers afterwards. All right? But that's just my thought on the question on whether to get a receiver versus a processor. Just if you don't mind, leave comments on what do you prefer. Do you have a receiver or are you using a processor? And how are you amplifying your system? All right. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.